Hi, everyone. This is Mitch Lee, the Profit Prophet at Vendavo. Welcome to Vendavo Commercial Excellence Month Live. We'll be getting started in just a few seconds while we let folks move in from the waiting room into the actual auditorium. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Vendavo Commercial Excellence Month Live. This is going to be session 2, and we'll be getting started in just a moment. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So yes, again, this is Vendavo Commercial Excellence Month Live, and we're really happy to have you here today. First, a couple of housekeeping items. If we can go to the next slide, I have to show you my obligatory disclaimer that says that basically everything you see is not a commitment or a guarantee to deliver the features that we've highlighted. My next housekeeping slide. What we're going to be talking about today is first a few upcoming events. On Wednesday, Bruno and I will be working with Stefan Liazou talking about pricing and the C-suite, 5 things every CEO must know about pricing. On Thursday, one of Vendavo's longtime key customers will review their success in migrating to the cloud. That one's for Vendavo customers only. And on Friday, Stefan Liazou and I will be talking about how to leverage pricing to take advantage and take control of this disruptive environment. Now, events run through the end of the month. You can use that scan code that you see up on your screen now, or just head over to vendavo.com. While we have the session today, we'll be doing live Q&A. We'll take as many as we can along the way, but we do have time reserved at the end to address your questions. Know that if we run out of time, we will reply to you with a question, answer to your question following it. Now, before we turn to today's discussion, let's talk about this month-long virtual event. Yesterday, with our panel with Peter Regan, Louis Columbus, and Stefan Liazou, we talked about how things are different. These sessions were originally set to be face-to-face in person as part of our ongoing program of building a community to drive commercial excellence. Just like you, we have pivoted to continue to deliver value to our community in these turbulent times. The pricers, the sales leaders, the P&L owners that are responsible for sustainable profitability, recognizing all the internal challenges and the externalities that are required to create optionality for growth and investment in the business. To frame our thinking in these turbulent times, we're using a 3-phase framework to organize perspectives by looking at what's happening and what needs to be done today, tomorrow, and in the future. The first phase is disruption. That's what we're all facing right now. The unforeseen happens and you have to deal with the issues that require immediate attention. Next, that pace slows a bit and you're repeating how you address those immediate problems with learnings, with the things you did once or twice before. You're now in the second phase, the new normal. And now the difficult part. You need to look for the shift because it's more than surviving a crisis. It's about being ready to thrive. Yes, you need to manage through that, but more importantly, you need to work to adapt yourself and your organization for what's on the other side of the new normal. That is the transformation phase, and that's the basis for thriving on the other side, and that's why we're working on commercial excellence. For this month-long event, it boils down to this. We're connecting in a different way. We're now virtual, but the objectives are the same, and certainly with a greater sense of urgency. So let's get started. In our second session of Commercial Excellence Month, we're going to walk through key points of Vendavo's strategy and our product roadmap. Joining me today are Bruno Slosse, CEO here at Vendavo, and Alex Hoff, VP of Product Management and Product Marketing. Bruno, Alex, glad to see you today.
Thank you.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
I'm good. Just getting myself off mute.
No worries. And of course, I'm Mitch Lee, Profit Evangelist for Vendavo. You've probably seen me in your email inbox as the Profit Prophet, but today I'm happy to be your humble host. So let's turn now to the agenda. Our agenda today is first, Bruno walking us through performance, strategy, and a look ahead at Vendavo. And then Alex will walk us through the product roadmap. And as I noted earlier before, we'll do live Q&A at the end using that Zoom functionality. So now, with that, I'll turn it over to Bruno for a walk through performance and strategy.
Thanks, Mitch, and thanks for the opportunity to be here with you virtually. I did take the opportunity to put a jacket on. Thank you for that. As Mitch indicated, we'll take a look at our 2019 performance. We'll talk a little bit about 2020. Most of those goals were created really before COVID hit, and then talk a little bit about looking ahead. So for the last 5 years, we've been working hard to sort of transform the company from pricing only to sort of digital B2B commerce in the cloud. Every year, we've actually set some goals, some imperatives to help navigate us through that. And 2019 was no different. These three actually were a continuation to a certain extent from 2018. Customer at the center, which was really around making it simpler to do business with us. We built a commercial engagement framework to where it's clear what you can expect from us, and also internally what we need to deliver for you, from a quality perspective, from a delivery perspective. Second was our commitment to you to deliver our solutions faster. How do we deliver a project in a much faster time frame? How do we make it less expensive? So essentially working on total cost of ownership. And really in 2018 and more predominantly in 2019, how do we make sure that we don't just plumb a system in, but focus on delivering outcomes? We typically build a business case with our customers to see the benefit to their bottom line. How do we make sure that we are achieving those, we're measuring those, and if we're not hitting those outcomes, what can we do about it collectively? And then third is accelerated innovation. Now that essentially all of our solutions are in the cloud, we can deliver from the first concept to you consuming it way faster. Back in an environment where we were on premise, often that took a year, sometimes 2 years. Today, all of our solutions are delivered through 3-week sprints. And so essentially, we can deliver a new concept in 3 weeks into an operational cloud-based system. I wanted to share some financial KPIs. On the left-hand side, you see 2 that are related to sales and revenue. We're coming off, as I indicated, a very strong year. 21% year-over-year bookings growth, which came on the heels of 2018, which was 50%. So 2 years of very strong growth. You can see that reflected on the left bottom side there, 79% year-over-year SaaS revenue growth. So our cloud solutions are really well accepted in the marketplace. What it's doing for us is that it's creating more predictability. You can see that in 2019, 62% of our revenue was recurring. If you go back to 2015, that was 25%. So the ability to make more investments, to have clear visibility on what's going on from a financial perspective is key. And then also we've been able to move our legacy customers that were on-premise into the cloud. You can see 15 of our enterprise customers made a commitment to move with us into the cloud. On the right-hand side, you can also see our competitiveness in the marketplace. So 21 new enterprise logos was a record for us. And we essentially classify an enterprise logo as a company with 1 billion revenues or higher. And then our retention rate was 93%, which from a cloud perspective is a high number. So I wanted to put this slide in. This is obviously a very busy slide. And the intent is not for you to try to read the individual components that are there. But I wanted to highlight one aspect that I touched upon earlier, which is delivering outcomes. We are attempting to work with all of our customers out there to ensure that we consistently measure the impact of our solutions. And what you're seeing here is we had 27 customers, go to the next slide here, where we essentially on a quarterly basis measured the impact of people, process, and technology. So this is essentially us working together with you, our customers, to understand the impact of the bottom line from a margin and from an EBITDA perspective. And you can also see here that the average return was $18 million. So significant value derived for our customers out there. And we will continue to put a ton of focus in this area. Similar to 2019, we have identified our goals for 2020. There are 4, and I'll walk you through briefly. The first is drive customer success. So we want to be able to deliver 1 to 3% return on sales for every customer. So the team that's starting to do that work at the beginning of 2019 was 5 people. As we exited 2019, that team was about 20, and we'll continue to grow that to make sure that for every single customer, we can make sure that you get to your outcomes. Second is continue to build out and deliver on the premise of commercial excellence. So we've made a commitment around a much broader functional footprint, make sure that is delivered to you 100% in the cloud. And we continue to have a pretty big agenda there, which Alex will walk you through. Earn customer loyalty. This is really around making sure that we do everything to ensure that you stay loyal to us. And so there's a ton of activities that are essentially done under that imperative across all aspects of the company. And then continued growth. Companies either decline or they grow. It's very important for us to continue to grow. For folks that have been with us for the last 5 years, you've seen us execute a strategic plan that by and large, we did very well against. We went from a company that was mainly working on custom code to today, a 100% cloud-based company that is a much broader functional footprint and focused on business outcomes. This was major transformation, took a ton of effort, a ton of investment, but we delivered on it. And now we really shift our focus to the next 5 years. So we'll be starting work, now and over the summer and into the fall, really to think about what is our next 5-year plan. How do we make sure we continue to put customers at the center? How do we improve their experience? It'll focus on questions in terms of go-to-market. Do we expand into other industries? Do we actually expand geographies? How do we continue to mature the consulting organization from an outcome perspective? And obviously things like product, R&D, human capital. So I want to say a few words on COVID-19. Obviously it's impacted all of us and it is a disruption, and really it's the combination of danger and opportunity. And so, our focus has been, can we build a framework to make sure we're all on the same page? Can we be more transparent, and really focus on that both internally and externally? And I think we've done that, and I'll walk you through some of these things here. So the premise around our COVID planning was these 3 things: the ability to respond quickly, appropriately, and proactively across all our parts of our business to make sure that we have health and safety well taken care of for our employees and business continuity. The second was really sort of a shared understanding of the different phases that we perceive, you as a customer perceive out there, and how do we go through that? We think there's obviously an opportunity to minimize the downside, more importantly, maximize the rebound for our customers. And then last, really, how do we make sure that we act as one Vendavo, we're well coordinated internally and externally. So these are the 3 phases of disruption. You've seen us talk a little bit about this. In the disruption phase, it's very difficult. People are focused internally versus externally, and you're really trying to manage through that. The second is the new normal. We're trying to envisage what the new normal looks like. What are the biggest challenges? What are the obstacles? How do we prepare for that? And then transformation. Are there opportunities out there to transform our business and help to deliver new solutions for our customers? So for my take, we're sort of getting to the end of the disruption. We started hearing about economies opening up, both in the Western world, in Europe. I think we're starting to talk about that as well in the United States, and we'll see that gradually. We definitely, as a company, are starting to define the new normal. We've laid out these 3 phases. We've identified what we need to do, what some of our challenges are. And then we really have some early thinking from a solution perspective to say, okay, how do we change? What can be transformative? The engagement of our teams is very high. So we've been actually pretty transparent in the dialogue with our teams. The frequency of dialogue is way, way, way higher. And we've asked them to participate. So we actually did a poll, if you will, with our employees. And in a 1-week period, we had 93 submissions, reasonably well thought out submissions, categorized around sort of accelerating innovation, helping you, our customers, and what can we do? And we've actually subsequent to that offered 4 or 5 different programs into the marketplace, some of them at no cost. And then also smarter spending. Are there things where we can sort of pull up and spend differently during this time? And so this is my last slide before I hand it off to Alex, but I wanted to share sort of our context. You know, I would say definitely COVID is different than 2008. In 2008, we had a set of bad assets into the economy. The foundation was pulled out. And I would say before COVID, you know, the economy was doing well. It was strong. From a Vendavo perspective, we're an all-cloud solution company today. So we can deliver everything virtually. We had to make some adjustments from a delivery perspective, but we are now in a position where we can deliver, frankly, all of our solutions 100% virtual. What we've seen is actually that there's an uptick in margin pressure naturally with what's going on economically, but also that the need for our solutions as part of the rebound will probably come. So we feel confident that we will be in a position to help our customers both today and into the future. We had really good market momentum. You saw our 2019 results. We actually had really good validation from Gartner. We moved up in the Magic Quadrant from a CPQ perspective. And we spent a day with Gartner to evaluate sort of our progress, and we got really good thumbs up. And then last but not least, we're a profitable company. We had positioned ourselves in the last couple of years to drive cash flow, to pay our own bills. We've been transparent about that. And obviously, we have well-capitalized ownership. So in the case that we do need some help, we're in a great position here. So with that, I will hand it over to Alex to walk you through the product piece. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Bruno. All right, so we're going to take a minute here to go through the product roadmap and kind of where we're heading for the solutions that we bring to market for you. But first, I wanted to do something a little bit different than maybe is typical, and wanted to have a little bit of audience participation time. So if you're multitasking right now, and not saying anybody would ever do that, but if you are, it's time to revert your attention here. And we're going to put up a poll here, and we're going to ask you guys some questions, and we'll be able to see the results here live, as well as this is useful information for me in terms of product strategy. So James, our lovely assistant here, will put up a poll here. The first question is, how do you see pricing changing in the new normal and or in this transformation phase? And you can select multiple. So select, 2 or 3 that you think are applied. So more dynamic pricing, perhaps more localized pricing where supply chains have been disrupted and people are going to price more from a local domestic perspective. Possibly tighter margin controls around pricing rules. Some people feel there'll be an increased focused on EBITDA, which can sometimes happen during a downturn. And then whether you think there'll be an increase in price transparency, as a lot of people have been kind of predicting over recent years, or whether there's actually a decrease in price transparency potentially related to some of the changes. So which of these do you think are likely to kind of stick with the new normal and or transformation phase?
Alex, I think you're going to get a lot of answers for a lot of those. Maybe the last 2 exclude each other, but I think you're going to see a lot of bumps on a lot of these. This is a great question.
So maybe pick your top 2 or 3 that you think are the most likely. And then James, if you don't mind, why don't we go ahead and let's show kind of what the responses look like on that front. Okay, so looks like the highest response rates then are more dynamic pricing and tighter margin controls, which not super surprising there. So and then between increased price transparency and decreased, most of you feel like there's still going to be more increase than decrease, although probably not the biggest impact items on the list here for you. So that was really helpful. So thank you. So could we close that, James? Thank you. And then next question is, how do you see sales or the commerce process changing in the new normal and or the transformation phase? So some examples here that we thought through are maybe increased use of deal desk. We heard this from a couple of our customers in our advisory council. So more a deal desk, if you're not familiar with the term, more of a deal review process for contracts or renewals or quotes, more scrutiny effectively on negotiations. Increased use of digital or virtual selling. We heard a little bit about this yesterday on the panel discussion, that a lot of companies are being forced into a mode where they're not doing the site visit, in-person selling, and having to do selling through Zoom or Cisco or whatever. To what degree do you think that'll stick and become part of the new normal or the transformation phase? How about shorter contract durations? So this would be because of more uncertainty or less certainty, will contracts become shorter and terms be different? Maybe shorter sales negotiation cycles or deal cycle times. And then another one too, increase that some people are expecting, and I'm curious what you guys think about, is the shift in sales towards the e-commerce channel, and how much that's going to be a factor. So again, pick maybe two of these that you think are the most likely, and hopefully I've given you enough time. So James, let's go ahead and let's see what they say. So survey says, all right, so it looks like increased use of digital or virtual selling. Okay, that's going to stick. That's very interesting. You know, the panelist yesterday was talking about, if you're a B2B salesperson and you were not comfortable in the past with, you know, technology and selling virtually, you have to now to survive. And I think that's what that's getting at there too. Encouraging to see the e-commerce channel as well. I think a lot of people are predicting that too. So very good feedback. Thank you for taking the time to walk through that with us. We can close that out. Thank you, Vanna. All right, so what I wanted to do then is walk through kind of some big trends that we're seeing, explain our strategy really with how we want to enable value for you. And I think context is really important. So I want to set the context a bit first. So some big trends that we have been seeing. One is kind of digitalization of B2B commerce. You guys just said two of those things on the last poll there, right? Digital selling and then e-commerce. So that's definitely a shift that we're seeing. This consumerization of the buying experience in B2B also came up yesterday on the panel discussion from the folks from Forbes and Blue Ridge Partners, where the B2B buyers are increasingly expecting a B2C experience. And a lot of people feel as though the customer experience is the new battleground in B2B. And there's even some interesting research out there beginning to be out there on what kind of a premium can you actually command from a pricing perspective if you have a superior customer or buying experience. Another one I call the normalization of artificial intelligence. At Vendavo, I've been here for 12 years, and in the early days, I had to spend a lot of time kind of demystifying things like segmentation, regressions, and things like that, because it seemed like for a lot of people that kind of advanced analytics or AI was a little bit like voodoo or something like that. And I think that now we're just so accustomed to things like Waze and Alexa, and it's become just a part of our daily lives that I think we all kind of expect AI to be kind of embedded in software solutions. So it's less of its own thing and more of just part of what we need to do. Another thing we've been seeing is from you, our customers, is a kind of a de-risking of enterprise software projects. Again, 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, not uncommon to see you know, a 2 or 3 year project get initiated, you know, millions of dollars in scope for a large enterprise in a global kind of big bang or boil the ocean kind of projects. And you're just not seeing those anymore. Even for some of our customers who are some of the largest companies in the world, they're choosing to do more piloted regional by region or process by process rollouts. Anything or everything as a service. This is another trend, means, and this is basically, even in kind of industrial manufacturing, we're hearing from some of our customers that they're beginning to experiment with alternative pricing or revenue models like subscription or output-based pricing, consumption pricing, things like that. So those are new revenue models. We have to price those differently. So, you know, you're going to have to help us figure out how does that play into your business, and how can we enable that as a technology provider? So like, as an example, we put in place some basic subscription quoting capabilities in CPQ last year, and we expect to continue to build out kind of that subscription and alternative revenue model pricing capabilities. And then this one's kind of funny because, well, I guess it's not funny, but we put on here a good year and a half ago that economic uncertainty, we just kind of felt things were starting to boil a bit. Oil, and I promise this slide was here a while ago. Brexit, oil, trade wars were kicking in. There was growing clouds and talk about a recession, et cetera. And then, of course, this winter came, and we have COVID has kind of eclipsed all of those things, really, and become a significant event globally from an economic standpoint. And so that's obviously dominating a lot of the discussion we're talking about today. So given all of those changes, it's even more true today that we believe companies need a real holistic approach to commercial excellence. And that is really having a detailed understanding of all of your customers' individual nuanced needs and wants that enable you to then identify and offer the right products, the right prices at the right time and in the right manner. So that in the right manner is kind of the customer or buying experience aspect. So we believe these things need to be tied together. Whether you do some of these with Vendavo or all of these, we at least need to make sure our solutions support all of those things, right? We also worked with some strategy consultants, some thought leaders in the pricing space, and some other folks on our customers as well, Gartner, on kind of validating this model that we've developed for commercial excellence maturity. And in general, the concept is the less mature you are on commercial excellence, the more likely it's going to look like we have one catalog that we take to market with one price book, and we have one sales message and one pricing strategy, you know, and that's kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. And where you get to the most mature phase in terms of commercial excellence, you're having a highly tuned product offering for every particular customer or quote that's appropriate, and it's priced based on the value of that customer. So think of it as a highly personalized or customer-centric approach. And you kind of get more mature across the top, as well as these things have to be integrated, these different capabilities, because you could have a just world-class pricing strategy and solution maybe that supports that. But if it's not plugged into the sales channel or aligned with their incentives or something like that, then it's not really going to get you as much value, right? So for each dimension of capability, there's different stages from unstructured to disciplined, et cetera. One of the first steps, though, in moving along this spectrum is kind of understanding where your organization is today. What's the current state? So we facilitated about 200 self-assessments from our own customers, and currently this is how they would rate their maturity basically across these different dimensions. So as you can see, there are some differences in the distributions, but in general, there's a lot of opportunity for growth, and these are our customers. So not necessarily the general market. And then on the right, if you look at that, the score they gave themselves on average when filling out this instrument was about a 1.6 out of 4. So not really great across the integration of these things. Now, what we thought was really interesting, I thought you would enjoy this, but we also commissioned a similar pricing maturity study in Europe with the European pricing platform. And this is kind of what the maturity curve looked like, if you will, across very similar bases, okay? And then this is what, if you just took the pricing section out of our own instrument, this is kind of where the Vendavo customers are. So even though there's a lot of work to do, even amongst us in the family, but we're actually doing better than the general population. So I think that's all of those things I think are encouraging in their own right. So, all right. So our goal then is not just to give you software, but to provide solutions that enable transformation and growth along these complementary skills or dimensions. ultimately, what we're trying to do is help you drive value realization and drive better and better financial returns for your organization. We believe it's very important to realize it's not about a software application or big data or even AI or machine learning. Those are all wonderful, but they need to be combined in the right way with other things like change management, the proper organizational structure and processes, et cetera. So all these things need to come together. And so our goal is to help you with this. And one of the primary ways, of course, is software. So these are the critical capabilities that we have been building, assembling, integrating into effectively what we refer to a lot as the Commercial Excellence Cloud. The first set of capabilities is around the sales or commercial process. Regardless of what industry sector you're in, there's going to be some sort of a process where the customer in a self-serve situation or a salesperson for them is going to be kind of configuring, selecting, recommending the right product or service offering, then pricing it appropriately, quoting it in an efficient manner, right? And with all the right messaging, then potentially in some cases contracting that into an agreement, and then at some point down the road, then focusing on renewals. That's fundamental process is something that is not really supported by CRM or ERP very well. And so it kind of represents this kind of middle office space where there hasn't been a great deal of digitalization, if you will. And then all that needs to be supported through the different channels. So e-commerce, direct and indirect sales as well. Then of course you've got pricing. Pricing is critical, and it kind of is a foundation underneath that sales process above, where we do things like set list and target prices, where we do things like respond dynamically to cost or competitive market changes, survey the market or collect competitive and market intelligence to inform our pricing strategies, et cetera. And then in some cases, customer specific programs or rebates for different types of customers, et cetera. So those things are kind of going on a regular basis based on feedback from how things are occurring in the market. At Vendavo, we've never wanted to be just a workflow solution or a business process application. We want to enable you to make smarter decisions. So a real key for us is this middle area there. It's kind of the gray matter that connects the two. And that's really intelligence and insights around both the pricing side of things as well as the selling side of things. And so really we want to take these areas of commercial intelligence and enable them to support both the sales and the pricing users, which are the kind of two primary focuses. And then of course, these things have to be really well integrated into your big front office and back office applications as well. So that's kind of our framework for how we want to enable commercial excellence. These big sets of critical capabilities, there are products, of course, that are behind these. And that's what we'll talk about here in a bit more detail. Here's an example of maybe a more of a swim lane or a workflow view of how these things all then come together. So you've got your sales users again across the top and your pricing personas there on the bottom. So typically the way this all starts is we ingest data from your ERP or your data warehouse systems, things like transaction history or costs or master data, et cetera. Then we have a set of analytical solutions like Profit Analyzer, our new Margin Bridge Analyzer, which I'll talk about in a minute, risk alerts that do different things with the transaction history that you've got pulled into the Vendavo Intelligence Cloud. Then pricing users will do things like set list prices, price ladders, market specific prices, et cetera. Some of our customers will also leverage deal price guidance, another new solution for building a scientific supported segmentation model and setting optimized pricing guidance, et cetera. Then you've got the sales process up above, and that's supported with the CPQ Cloud solution, or whatever the other solution is your company may already be using. And the really encouraging thing that I want you guys to understand is that all of these key integration points are already there. So these solutions are all have API wrappers, and these APIs have standard configurations that are built and ready to go. They can be modified in a lot of cases as well, but what you eventually then have is this kind of closed loop or virtuous loop process where based on what we know, we set policies, strategies, and then implement that into the selling and commercial process. And then we see how that goes, and that then feeds back through the data, and you have a nice, wonderful closed loop process. So this is kind of the ideal scenario. You don't have to use all of these. So our vision is, and our strategy is to make these all API enabled so that if there's parts of this that you want to use, but not some other part, that's fine too. So if you want the Salesforce across the top there, that's fine. We have standard package adapters to plug into that as well. So let's take a minute now and talk through kind of the roadmap of what's coming next in terms of like strategy for how we support these things. So if we come back to this, this framework, this commercial excellence framework or middle office construct, I want to highlight the key enhancements, the improvements and additions to our capabilities that span our set of integrated solutions that make up this commercial excellence cloud. So the first set are related to the sales and commerce side of things. So if I go kind of left to right, we have built some integration with SAP CRM for our CPQ solution. That solution was already integrated into several other CRM solutions, and we kind of manage that kind of thing based on customer demand. So we had some customers ask for this, so we've built a packaged integration then into SAP C4C. Another really useful, exciting enhancement, doesn't sound really awesome, but trust me, it really is, which is the custom tables in CPQ allows us to expand the ability that we had before to the user to define basically ad hoc tables of data and then fill that from external data sources. So it allows a lot of use cases and scenarios that then don't require technical configuration. So another one is adding the ability to do formula pricing based in CPQ. That's often common in the process industries and things like that. Agreement enhancements, so making CPQ a lot more robust around handling price or sales agreements. So pricing things at hierarchy levels and product volume tiers and things like that. So sophisticated, think of it as sophisticated pricing negotiations within CPQ. Additional localization enhancements. So we have a customer rolling out in 14 different languages right now this year. And so we'll be adding some capabilities to make the localization of the user experience even better. We are looking really closely at how to do digital document collaboration and redlining, as well as enhancing our document storage in a repository. So when quotes are created, they can be negotiated digitally and then stored digitally as well. And then adding the ability to do mass changes, mass price changes, mass agreement changes in CPQ. In the analytics space, we are going to be taking a deal price guidance, or DPG. Some major enhancements are coming very soon on that front. It's kind of a list of things, and so we'll go more in detail on this and all of those things in upcoming webinars in the Commercial Excellence Month. We'll be adding some optimization capabilities to DPG. We're adding additional contextual analytics capabilities that start in the analytics suite, but then flow to both the CPQ and sales systems as well as the pricing as well. On the right over there, we just launched last week a new solution called Margin Bridge Analyzer. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail on the next slide, I believe. And then on Profit Analyzer, for those of you who use that, we had some enhancements in the most recent version, and we've got some really nice ones planned for version 11. And then to support the pricing processes, we'll be adding mass change in price point. We have built some adapters for Profit Analyzer to be able to interchange more robustly with price point. An adapter in Margin Bridge Analyzer for Profit Analyzer so that you can use these solutions together more easily. And then we'll be adding a bunch of enhancements, or actually are right now in the next version of price point around the distribution industry. And last, we'll be enhancing formula pricing capability in price point as well. So we're a lot of things. We're very busy. I wish we could do even more. We all have budgets, but a lot of things that we've got on our plate for this year across both the sales and commercial front, the pricing side of things, and then kind of the analytics and intelligence bit. So let me just hit 2 quick examples of kind of the new Vendavo. Okay, these are recent product releases, and I think you can look at these as good examples of things that are going to be coming more and more from us and from our product team. The first one was in about mid Q2 of 2019, we launched Deal Price Guidance. This is a totally cloud from the bottom up solution, does segmentation, pricing guidance, business rules, and guidance calculation APIs that connect to your sales team's quoting system. So advanced segmentation and pricing guidance solution. And what's really unique about it though, and what's different and unique is that all we really need to do is get the data integration hooked up for your transaction history, either list prices or costs. And then there really is almost no software configuration. Any of the settings and parameters and configuration is all done by users in clicks, not code. So it's really about 24 hours worth of work for an existing Profit Analyzer customer to be set up on Deal Price Guidance. So the comparison was something like this in a predecessor kind of solution, older technology would have taken 4 or 5 months to do that. So we're just an exponential decrease in the amount of time to implement. And then the solution we just launched last week is called Vendavo Margin Bridge Analyzer. So it does a really great job and a more robust job of analyzing the business impact of changes in prices, volumes, product mix, et cetera. Answers the questions like how much change was due to mix versus pricing versus volumes, et cetera, et cetera. And the really nice thing about this is that beyond just comparing time periods, you can compare different data sets like plan versus actual and do a variance analysis. And we have been using this on most of those 27 value assessments that Bruno talked about earlier. And this was part of that way of measuring it. So the other really exciting thing for those of you who are in pricing is we now have a very effective, cost-effective, easy way to actually measure the efficacy of your initiative, your team, and your pricing actions, and show the value of what you can do. And again, the great thing about this is being the modern architecture and cloud-based platform that we're on, there's basically no software configuration at all or implementation. It's really just setting up the data feed and then doing onboarding or training for your folks, which is short. So very fast, again, roughly 24 hours or so worth of effort. So we're super excited about what we're bringing to market. We're trying to balance both the pricing and well as the commerce side of things because we believe it's really all about the commercial excellence. And our goal is to bring to market solutions that are very easy to configure and maintain and very quick to get up and running. So that's the end of my kind of summary there. And I guess, Mitch, we're going to turn it over to you to help us with answering some questions that hopefully people have today.
You bet. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Bruno. Some great news there. Really exciting news, Alex, on those products that are coming through and developing more capabilities, easier capabilities for people to find what is going on and direct actions. That's really appropriate for today's turbulent times. So a couple of questions coming in. Bruno, I think I'll point this first one at you. You talked a lot about profitability of Vendavo. How would you say that would affect the risk of a pricing project at picking up a new pricing project with a new company?
I mean, one of the things that we have obviously sort of prided ourselves on is that as a pricing company, as a company that provides solutions, software, but also advice and counsel on profitability and margin expansion, we feel it's really important to sort of like take our own medicine. So obviously we have been profitable now for 4+ years. We've been expanding our margins. We've been doing the right things. And I would argue fairly unique in the pricing industry, which you wouldn't expect. One additional sort of comment, we've certainly seen the stock market go down substantially, in the beginning of this year, and we've seen a remarkable rebound, frankly, in the last 2 to 3 weeks. What's interesting to me is that you can see a stronger rebound with companies that are profitable, particularly in the tech sector, versus companies that are not profitable. So I think we will see more emphasis on, are you generating free cash flow? Are you running your business efficiently? Can you generate profit as an important marker of continuity and sort of long-term viability of companies? So we're proud to be in that space in sort of top echelon, and we'll continue to be.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge way to de-risk a decision to move forward with something like this. Thanks, Bruno. Yes, please use the Q&A function there on Zoom to put more questions in there. Right now, here's one for Alex. I think this is pointed at you. It says, we're a Vendavo customer right now. You talked a lot about new products. We're wondering about transitions and integration. How easy or how difficult is it to pick up some of these new capabilities, new products relative to what we have now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, as we began to kind of expand our portfolio of solutions to include things like CPQ and some additional analytics based solutions, we kind of knew going into this that we would be needing to make sure that things talk to each other and integrated. So that's always been, since I've been involved, the last couple of years at least, a big priority is, so a strong percentage of our work in product and engineering is focused on interoperability between these different solutions. And what's really sped that up in the last 2-3 years is both migrating our ability to both build new products in the cloud, but also run EPS or the older solutions in the cloud as well. A lot or most of our EPS customers are now in the cloud with us as well. Once that's all in one environment, then it allows us to do that connection a lot more efficiently. So there are adapters and connectors in most cases between all these different applications. We undoubtedly have more work we want to do on those, but there's a lot of, a great example would be the margin bridge adapter, margin bridge analyzer that we launched last week. And we've already gone and built an adapter for Profit Analyzer so that it can automatically export the data that you need to put it in Margin Bridge Analyzer. So if you're a Profit Analyzer customer, there's a very easy way for you to get that data over to the MBA solution.
So Alex, I'm going to ask this next question to you because it's almost exactly a follow-up of that. What are the prerequisites for rolling out Margin Bridge Analyzer? A little bit more detail and a specific question there. Does it only work on cloud? Okay.
Yep. So first part of that question, there aren't really any prerequisites. It's a standalone solution. So you could use only that software as a service from Vendavo if you wanted to. You would just need to provide your transaction history. We have a data spec that we share with customers that guides us on what data, how to view your transaction data as we ingest that. So we pull that data in, do a little bit of aggregation and transformation to it, and then load it in the system. And it's ready to go. If you're a Profit Analyzer customer today, then there's an adapter for Profit Analyzer that will kind of suck that data out, if you will, out of Profit Analyzer, so you don't have to even push us a transaction data history. We can pull it from Profit Analyzer. So there aren't really any prerequisites. Oh, and I forgot to mention, for one of our Lighthouse customers we're working with right now in Europe, we're also building an adapter for price point. So if you're a price point customer, we can pull the data out that we need for Margin Bridge Analyzer. So it's a little easier if you're already a Vendavo customer, but if you're not or you don't use one of those solutions, it's okay. We can just take a transaction file.
And then prem versus cloud?
Yeah, that's a good question. So necessarily, Margin Bridge Analyzer runs in the cloud. It runs on public cloud architecture, and so it's more secure, it's more scalable. We can deliver new features every day or every few weeks. So that's the reason why it is cloud-based. So you want to either send us the transaction file through a secure FTP on a regular basis, and our team will help you hook that transfer file up. So.
Makes sense. Thanks, Alex, for that. Bruno, I think this one is in your ballpark. Pretty broad question here. For customers going from on-prem to cloud, do you have references on effort, data migration, adoptability? The term here, is is a lift and shift of data or a different kind of migration effort?
Yeah, great question. And there's a couple different sites that I may ask Alex to comment as well. But so we have probably taken about 50% of our legacy customers that were on-prem into the cloud. And our first step is a lift and shift. What we want to do is make it incredibly simple. Essentially take your infrastructure digitally, if you will, take a copy, put it into our infrastructure cloud, and connect it to your local systems. That is typically a low effort from a time and energy perspective. We have seen some projects take a little bit longer, but I would say in general, it's a sort of 4 to 6 week effort, from when we start to when we finish. The second step is obviously taking advantage of more cloud-based capabilities. And in essence, that is dependent somewhat on functionality. So you have seen from Alex, we have put out there some new solutions that are incredibly easy to implement, given where we were a couple of years back. So depending upon what functionality you migrate, it could be a very simple effort, or it could take a little bit longer. Alex, I don't know if you want to share something there.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And a lot of it also depends on, how long ago did you implement? And what I would say, my strong advice is to don't look at it like I'm just going to do an exact copy of what we've done in a prior or predecessor solution. I had detailed discussions with one of our largest customers not long ago, and we were talking about their deal manager instance, for instance, that they've had, and there's some really cool things that were done in it. I won't say custom, but highly configured. And so we were talking about, well, some of those things aren't in a standard product in CPQ, for instance, and so they want to migrate to that for various reasons. And, it was actually, they're the ones who pointed out, we implemented this 8 years ago. I think we'd actually want a simpler solution if we were to start over today. So they were actually looking at it as an opportunity to simplify and improve upon what they've done before. So depending on what you've done in the past will a little bit influence kind of the effort involved in migrating, but it's an opportunity, I think, is the way I look at it.
Absolutely.
One other quick touch point to add here. I'm Margin Bridge Analyzer, so the solution that Alex showcased last here, for current customers, we're going to provide that free of charge for 6 months if you get started in the next 2 months here. And I think the deployment effort is literally sort of 3 to 4 days. So I would encourage existing customers to take us up on that offer. There is, you can use it, you can cancel, you can continue, whatever you want to do, but it's something that I would strongly encourage. Absolutely.
And speaking of that, Bruno, and the points we made just there, we have next week a session on Vendavo Margin Bridge Analyzer. So give a little bit more in depth on that. We did a launch on that, so we'll see some more information on that. And tomorrow, back to your question around the transition, we actually have a session tomorrow with an existing customer talking about their transition to cloud. So if you're an existing Vendavo customer, be sure and register for that. Looks like probably our last question that we have time for today, guys. And Alex, I'll point this at you. Do you have a time frame for end of support for on-premise instances?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm presuming, I'm pretty sure that's a follow-on for the lift and shift and migration. So therefore, I'm kind of assuming this is about our EPS suite, for instance. So what we announced last year was a move to, we're going to have a standard support window for 2 years at the GA date or release date of every EPS version. So like we just did version 10 in January, we'll do version 11 in September. And so there's a 2-year support window on that. And then you would move into extended support if you needed that. So plenty of time to consider all the opportunities and changes you may want to make. We don't have an end of life date, if you will, for those solutions. We plan on offering a generous period of time to migrate to newer, better, cheaper solutions in the cloud. And but we don't have like an end date where on this date we're turning all that stuff off, if you will. So I hope that makes sense. And we'd love to engage with you to understand exactly what you're using today, how you're using it, and how we can actually make that better. I really truly feel like in the last dozen or two conversations we've had this last year about this kind of thing, we're able to do 80-90% of what you're doing today with an older solution in the newer solution, as well as take advantage of things that are available in the newer solutions that we just don't have in the older ones. So I think it's definitely a net positive. So.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense, Alex. With that, I think we are at the end of our questions. Alex, Bruno, thanks so much for joining us today and giving us a great background on the product roadmap and strategy. With that, thanks everyone for joining us. And until we speak again, have a profitable day.
Yeah, thank you.